Welcome back. I'm Stephanie Ruhle. House Democrats are ramping up the pressure on President Trump and his administration. Their latest push came late yesterday when the House Ways and Means Committee officially asked the Treasury Department, good luck, Steve Mnuchin, for 6 years of the president's tax returns. Then candidate Trump had promised to release his taxes, and Democrats have been demanding to see them since the 2016 campaign. But when asked about the request, President Trump, he didn't seem to be bothered.
Oh, usually it's 10, so I guess they're giving up. Now, we're under audit, despite what people said. I'm always under audit, it seems, but I've been under audit for many years because the numbers are big, and I guess when you have a name, you're audited. But until such time as I'm not under audit, I would not be inclined to do that.
I'm joined now by Heidi Przybyla, NBC's national political correspondent, and Tim O'Brien, executive editor for Bloomberg Opinion, an MSNBC contributor and a Trump biographer, one of the few people on planet Earth who has actually seen Donald Trump's taxes. I know you can't dig into what is in them, Tim, but why is it such a big deal?
Well, I can talk generally about it. I think the main reason it's a big deal is if you get the returns and you can go back far enough with the returns, you'll see what kind of money he's got coming in from overseas, from places like Russia or China or the Middle East. And the obvious issue that raises is whether or not income he has from foreign sources compromise his ability to make independent policy, whether or not he's thinking first about public policy making or whether he's thinking first about deal making. And I think that's the issue that gets surfaced through the taxes.
Do you think we're ever going to see them?
I suspect not. I think this is going to be a big battle. I also don't think 6 years is going to be enough. There was this middle period in the mid-2000s when Donald Trump went on a shopping spree. He bought a golf course in Scotland. He put a lot of money into the Trump Soho. And there's always been this issue about where did that cash come from? Because he had typically, throughout his career prior to that, used debt to finance his acquisitions. And suddenly they started spending a lot of cash. And the Trump boys have told different stories about that. Eric has said Russia. Then he said I was speaking out of my mouth, wrong side of my mouth. Trump's never really said where the money's come from. But that gets you back to 2005, 2006. And none of those eras aren't in the period that Congress is now looking for returns.
Heidi, the president has spoken a lot in the past about releasing his taxes. I want to share a bit.
Maybe I'm going to do the tax returns when Obama does his birth certificate.
If I decide to run for office, I'll produce my tax returns, absolutely.
You don't learn anything from a tax return. I will absolutely give my return, but I'm being audited now for 2 or 3 years, so I can't do it.
Okie doke. He was elected. He did not release his tax returns. And I remember after being elected, Kellyanne Conway went on TV and said, oh, that's already been litigated. He won. People don't care anymore. You and I both know they do.
Right, Stephanie. And that is one of the things that House investigators think that they can get to the bottom of, which is this claim by the president the entire time during the campaign and now that he is still under audit. As part of this request, they want any correspondence with the IRS to prove whether that is in fact true. But Stephanie, to Tim's point, the reason why this has taken so long, because a lot of Democrats wanted to do this out of the gate when they took control of the House. But the reason why it's taken so long is that Chairman Neal has been very calculated about what he can ask for that won't get held up in court for a really long time. Now, that may very well happen, but he was advised to make this very tailored, to do 6 years instead of 10, and to only do a select number of the business entities that the president owns. He has 500 LLCs that the committee could have gone after, but didn't.
Instead, they focused. Why be this particular? It wasn't an accident.
Well, because they don't want to get, first of all, buried in paperwork that takes years to collect and uncover. And secondly, they thought that they could be a little bit more strategic and focus on the potential landmines like those entities that own the Trump Hotel in Washington, D.C., to get to the bottom of those conflict of interest questions. Point number two, in addition to conflict of interest, they want to look at that detailed reporting that we saw from the New York Times about this history, this culture in the Trump family of essentially evading taxes. The New York Times did report, and it's been reported in the past, that the Trump family may have benefited by as much as $400 million in inheritance money from the elder Trump to Trump himself by essentially evading taxes. So this committee thinks that this is another way of getting at what Michael Cohen testified to see if that is accurate or not, that the president was inflating his assets to insurance companies and then deflating them in order to game the tax system.
Tim, it's not just requesting President Trump's tax returns. In the last day, Democrats have asked for a lot. Politico points it out. In a single day, House Democrats demanded President Donald Trump's tax returns for 6 years, moved to get a decade's worth of his financial records, and prepared to issue a subpoena for the full Mueller report from the Justice Department. This comes as the House Intel Committee has reportedly reached out to top contractors to President Trump's inaugural to provide it with documents about the event. What should be most concerning for President Trump? The fact that we're going back to the inaugural, you are seeing one of Melania Trump's closest allies now being pushed. What's the biggest issue for Team Trump here?
Well, I think on the inaugural, it's similar to Mar-a-Lago. There's issues about whether or not there's foreign influence getting pay-to-play presence in front of the president, either through the inauguration or through memberships or attendance at Mar-a-Lago. On top of it, there's a big pile of money that's unaccounted for at the inauguration. And on top of that, with the inauguration, Ivanka was the broker on a lot of hotel rooms and other arrangements. She has primary knowledge of some of the transactions that occurred during the inauguration. So there's a possibility that Ivanka gets swept into some of that. I think on the broader financial records, Deutsche Bank is going to continue to be a huge issue for the president. The Congress is trying to get to the accountants' records. I don't know that they will. And then lastly, I think this thing with Trump he keeps saying that an audit is getting in the way of him being able to release his tax returns. Richard Nixon released his tax returns when he was in the middle of an audit. The IRS has said no one gets more than 3 audits in a row. So the idea that he's been audited for 12 years is probably a fabrication. And even if he is getting audited, he's well within his rights to go ahead and release the returns if he wants to. So the issue of there being an audit is a complete red herring.
He does not want to. Heidi, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin was asked about a whole bunch of this when he went before Congress last month. Here's what he had to say.
If you decide in the future to deliver this, we will receive it. I can't speculate on the request until I see it. We will follow the law, and we will protect the president as we would protect any individual taxpayer under their rights.
So he said they're going to follow the law. Who's got the law on their side, Ways and Means or Mnuchin?
Ways and Means fully anticipated this, Stephanie, and that's why a month ago they held a hearing to establish what the law is, what the statute says. And they had experts testify to that, and it's very clear under the statute 6103 that Congress and the Ways and Means Committee specifically can ask for any individual's tax returns, and Treasury, quote, shall provide them. Now, the catch here is that even though Congress can obtain any individual's tax returns, including the president, they cannot release them to the public without a vote. However, as you can see from Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, he's unlikely to furnish them, and therefore this is likely to wind up in a court battle. And that is why the chairman made this request very narrow, very targeted. They were consulting attorneys for several weeks to try and short circuit the length of that court fight, because it's not just Ways and Means that wants these tax return stuff. It is a number of committees that view this as a roadmap for their investigations.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.